Hello, Dr. Miguel. Good afternoon from Brazil.
Hello, good afternoon. Also in Argentina, in Mendoza city. That is it in the west of Argentina, close to the Andes mountain. We have a good wine. If you want to visit Mendoza, it's an opportunity to drink good wine.
I am looking forward for that. I hope to be in Mendoza by the end
Yes.
of the year and drink
Oh,
some very good wines.
okay, okay.
We have a common friend, Dr. Quinteros. He's making very
Yes,
good commercial from Mendoza wines. In the south of
yes,
Brazil, we have good wines too.
yes.
So
It's true. It's true.
I want
I
to try them both.
Yes, I visit some winery there, and the wine is okay. I think that the terroir, the specific landscape, give to the wine some characteristic. And Brazil have a special one, Mendoza, South Africa, different place, different possibilities.
Yes, Mendoza is very famous. Very good wine. So please allow me to first to say thank you for finding some time to receive us. We will use this great opportunity to publish your interview in the periodical Química, the Southern Journal of Science, in the conference website, and also we will share it with a local television. Our interview will be published under a Creative Commons license. Dr. Miguel Fornes is a researcher at CONICET. He is the director of the Andrological Research Laboratory of Mendoza, a professor of the Faculty of Medical Sciences of the National University of Cuyo and the Faculty of Medical Sciences of the University of Aconcagua, with a remarkable trajectory in the study of male infertility linked with hypercholesterolemia generated by high-fat diets. Also, in the treatment of hypercholesterolemia by high-fat diet with Mediterranean diet foods, such as olive oil. Dr. Fornes, did I include everything or I missed something?
No, no, it's okay. You are in the right way. Um, the diet that normally the food that we eat uh, have a serious impact in our health. Uh, you know that excess of fat or grace that we eat, this impact in different tissue, specifically at the vascular, coronary, at the heart, at the brain, and promote several illness. But at the reproductive tract, the people don't pay attention. But it's also a tissue that manage, for example, cholesterol. Cholesterol is a molecule that have different function in many type of cells, but in a sperm cell is a key molecule for many of the function that the sperm must perform previous to take contact with the oocyte. For example, capacitation is a term that describes a period of time when the sperm is in the female genital tract. During this moment, support several biochemical change and lost cholesterol from the plasma membrane, and this permit an activation of different functions. This permit that the sperm take contact with the oocyte and fertilize. For this reason, uh, the cells adjust the content of cholesterol to a limit, to very, very specific limit.
When you eat too much fat, you can change the balance.
Yes, the question is, uh, of course, there are fat that we eat normally, could be good one or bad one. The bad one, for example, came from the animal kind of cholesterol, fatty acid, different type of grays. And on the other side is the grays that came from vegetables. Most of the vegetables have also type of esterol, and most of them could be used by our body. This was the origin of a healthy diet. The healthy diet include many vegetables, and most of them have cholesterol or other molecules that we benefit for the people. In this way, appear specifically the Mediterranean diet. We say, what is Mediterranean diet? The people who live around the Mediterranean Sea eat a specific diet. In the past, probably today are occidentalized like us or many people. But during the past, they eat fish and, fruit and vegetable produced there. And the principal grace or oil that people eat was from vegetal, and specifically was olive oil. Olive oil have a good reasons for healthy, and probably the way that we must perform a good Mediterranean diet is replace the grace came from cow, for example, or for pig that normally we use a lot, by this olive oil. And there are different type of olive oil because the way to extraction the oil is different. But normally, extra virgin oil, it was came from the first pressure that you make in olive.
The
And that,
cold press.
yes, yes, and this produces juice that when you leave separate water from oil, and that was a very pure product. It really is a juice from a fruit, and it's very healthy because have a specific component. For example, hydroxytyrosol, that is a molecule present in olive oil, have a specific function in several pathway in the cell, and they make to support the stress that represent the use of fat diet. Because when you eat a lot of fat, they make a pressure over the cells, and the cells react. But there are a limit. At this moment appears different response from the cells to this stress. And if you use olive oil, the cell cannot enter to stress. And that was the reason that we recommend to use olive oil.
Regarding in this moment that we are talking about ingesting oils and fats,
Mhm.
that is a difficult question that comes for the people who live in the south of Brazil, and I believe in Mendoza as well. When we eat barbecue,
Yes,
is it potentially negative?
yes, yes. Well, but the question there is how many times during the week you eat meat. Um, Probably if you take once a time in the week or during the month, not all days, that could be not so bad. Uh, but the problem is the grace that is undercover For example, when you take bread, normally have salt and grace. Is necessary? Not, probably not, but it tastes good for people. But
Yes.
they have an excess of salt and grace. And probably the recommendation of the government must be slow down all of these components.
Yes. And well, if barbecue may be bad, I suppose that fast food is even worse.
Yes, yes, of course. Fast food, a typical from Occidental diet, is negative, have an impact. Um, Probably there are another situation. You know that the now is the obesity is
Yes.
considered an epidemic, and namely globesity, because many people have obesity, and this is associated with another illness. Specifically, is named chronic illness in adult people. And this illness begin with the time early in the life of people. You could see young people, obese or very obese, and most of them have fertility problems. And for this reason, is a good recommendation to lose this overweight. And the one of the via to lose this weight is using a Mediterranean diet. And
Perfect.
this Mediterranean, of course, is using olive oil or another vegetal oil. There are different types.
Once upon a time in Brazil, I saw on the television a research talking about coconut oil. Is this also a positive oil?
Uh, I think that there are a different type of oil. Coconut could be one, but probably are others came from uh, green vegetables specifically that are better than the coconut. But of course, uh, is better a vegetable oil than other came from cow or pig or you know.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Miguel,
Mhm.
can you provide an overview of the research conducted in the Mendoza Andrological Research Laboratory under your supervision?
Yes, we work from different point of view. Some of us work in sperm development that was produced in the testes. Is the how spermatogonia is the first cells and how these cells transform in a sperm cell. Other people look for capacitation that was talking previously. Others study acrosomal reaction. There are many field or point of view to study this cell. But in the last years, we are using a model in which we can promote a hypercholesterolemia, increased cholesterol in the body, how this cholesterol impact in a sperm cell. This model is named translational model because we is similar that what's happening in human, but was in this case in rabbit. The idea is to have a model developed and we can manipulate in some way this model uh, without a person, without use a human model.
Yeah,
uh,
very
uh,
good.
yeah, and the sperm cell is an interesting cell because it's produced in the testis, but perform a long trip to acquire or to reach to female oocyte. Is one of the unique cell because it can export it outside of the body and continue and to be living cells. And to do this, they must adjust many of the form and the physiology of the cell to perform this incredible trip because they must cross the female genital tract to reach the oocyte, and that was a long trick for a small cell.
Yes, considering the size, it is a very long distance.
Yes, and specifically, um, the testis is composed by several tubules, named seminiferous tubules, and these tubules is the factory of the sperm. There, uh, from one cell must to have several division and transform the morphology and to many steps to be an sperm cell. And some of them involves a spectacular transformation because uh, must to develop a flagellum or cilio to permit the movement of the cells. Many other change. Um, these changes are orchestrated very precisely in the time and in the space that are arranged the cells specifically. Well, in hypercholesterolemic model, some of these steps must alter or have change that produce um, abnormal sperm, morphologically abnormal sperm, and not all, but some of them, and it could influence in the fertility of these men or rabbit in our model.
The morphological
Mhm.
abdo,
Abnormal sperm.
abdo, I'm sorry,
Okay.
defective cells,
Yes.
they still viable for reproduction or they are no longer viable?
Well, the ideas, the change are minimal. It's not the sometimes it's not the big change, but have an influence. The sperm morphology is one of the parameters that the people look in the semen in the sperm cell to say is fertile or not fertile. It, you must count the cells, but not also count how many sperm are present, how many normal sperm are present, because this is a parameter that indicate that the man is fertile or not fertile. And sometimes it's minimal change. For example, if the sperm have two vacuoles, minimal vacuoles, these cells are not so good. And if you have a lot of these sperm cells, probably the fertilities go down.
Regarding the counting method,
Mhm.
is it done by, when you're looking on the microscope, it's done by software or you need to count?
Well, there are many laboratories and all have a specific method, but in general, in andrology and in hospital or clinic, they have an automatic sperm count, name it CASA, CASA, and it's coupled with the computer, the software, and make an account very quickly. You could see a lot of samples in one morning. But finally, if one is, if you have some, say, okay, that not or yes, you must put in the microscope, see, analyze, uh, because say for one man you are infertile or not is a difficult moment. I think that the andrology doctor take the time to see and analyze specifically.
Yes, it's a very well. It's bad news for anyone,
Yes.
even for a man or for a woman. It's something hard
Yeah.
to listen.
And you know that the unfertile couples growing up, sorry, at this time, we don't know how, but or why, but there are many couples that cannot have a child.
I, I may, if you allow me, I will deviate a little bit my question.
Mm.
But I was talking to a colleague that under recent times we had uh, the coronavirus pandemic.
Mm.
We heard that it may have somehow impacted on female fertility. Could it be also applied to the male fertility?
Oh, there are some papers, or not some, there are a good number of papers, are not conclusive final final statement, but there are people that found some problem there, and others don't see a big question. But I think that there are still a good question because virus compromise the testes, and coronavirus was one of them. Uh, More than the gripe that influence normally, you know that we have in the past a lot of. Um, well, it is a still open question.
This is something that we will have to wait for the future to see results.
I think that there are lost some the impulse the wave of a study of coronavirus is going down, but there are still people working there. Um, I, I think that we must expect some interesting result.
The next question: what specific findings or insights have your research revealed regarding the effects of dietary fat content on the sperm health and function?
Yes, the fat that we eat is absorbed and circulate in the body and promote an increment in the cholesterol in blood. This impact in different tissues, tissues at the brain, at the heart, uh, kidney, different tissues. And the testis. The testis was not studied previously, but we and other lab pay attention of this question because one of the fat present there is cholesterol. Cholesterol is associated with many of the chronic illness in adult people. And cholesterol is also an important molecule in the sperm life. And for this reason is incremented, the cell cannot complete a specific step or a specific function to fertilize the oocyte.
Thank you. Dr. Miguel, can you discuss with us some of the notable outcomes or promising results that have emerged from your investigations into sperm physiology and dietary influences?
Well, one of the problem with the high fat diet is the negative effect in sperm cell. The amount of cholesterol present in sperm is increased, uh, and that interfere with normal physiology of sperm. For example, cannot support the acrosomal reaction. Acrosomal reaction is a specific step that must be done previously to fertilize the oocyte. If the acrosomal reaction does not appear, the sperm cannot fertilize the oocyte. In sperm obtained from rabbit with hypercholesterolemia, some of these sperm cannot perform acrosomal reaction. Not all, but a great number of them. And for this reason, uh, the infertility is possible to see.
That's very interesting. How do you envision the implications of your research findings for clinical applications or interventions related to male reproductive health?
Yes, I think that the recommendations as a medical doctor is that the people must change the style of life. You know that diet is more than food. Is is the people to do exercise, to make just walking or make some exercise, not as a professional sport, but that is also accompanied with a healthy diet, for example, Mediterranean diet, uh, in which it must include fruit, vegetal, and of course olive oil is important because um, probably is not the big intervention, but help to any other intervention that the men need for improve the fertility. You understand? It's not the only approach that medic or the doctor have, but it's good because it's natural, it's not so expensive, and also be good for health, not only for fertility, but the
Yes, yes. Once upon a time, a long time ago, I studied in Portugal,
Mm,
and they have amazing olive oil,
yes, yes,
and
yes.
at a very low cost compared to Brazilian cost.
Well, that's a problem. The cost of olive oil because it's with the time is increased because the people discover the olive oil and many people want to use, and but the country that produce olive oil or the amount of hectares or the amount of plants that produce olive going down. For example, here in Mendoza, some of this place was used to make a neighborhood, and the olive trees disappear. And that problem is in many countries, also in Italy and Spain, and because we need to redesign the landscape. That was for produce fruit or vegetables or olive, and this is for neighborhood for city because the soil is specific and there are the grape or the olive or any need nutrients for the soil, and that was interesting.
In Portugal, when I was there, we were talking about
Mhm,
the cycle of the olive tree,
mhm,
and they told me that for them to join the European Union, they
mhm.
were requested to suppress basically, well, a lot of trees.
Yes, but there are commercial, international commerce that makes some barriers, and it's incredible. But that is one of the reasons. There are many olive oil or country can produce olive oil. And for example, Brazil is close to Mendoza or close to Argentina, and you can receive from here olive oil uh, inexpensive.
That's another thing to look for in Mendoza.
Mm.
Wine and olive oil. Good Good combination.
Yes, yes,
Doctor,
yes.
uh, let me go to my next question.
Mhm.
To my last question, Doctor,
Yes.
in what ways does your collaboration with the National Research Council of Argentina, the CONICET, and the Institute of Histology and Embryology in Mendoza contribute to the advancement of the scientific knowledge and dissemination of research outcomes in the field of andrology?
Yes, I think that it's important that we can reach to many peoples, to people from our community, close or outside of the local community, to talk about the olive oil and the benefits in health, and also to introduce the idea that uh, obesity appear in young people. That was a problem because interfere with many function in people and specifically in reproduction. Because in the past, the people obesity is related with old people. It's not frequently in young person, but now not probably also in children at the school. You can see some obesity people, and any of these investigation or talking or interviewed by the television or radio station is important because the people was listen about that and say, okay, uh, take conscious of the problem. That's very important. Also, is interested for the industry of olive oil. This factory uh, and the people that produce olive uh, need to improve. If they can sell more olive, probably have a better conditions, and the factory also grow up, and all of this contribute to the development or economical development. Well, there are several reasons for this type of research that are linked to a specific product.
Another question, Doctor.
Yes.
Please, I promise that the last one would be the last one, but
Mhm.
another one
Okay.
emergency.
Okay. No, don't worry. Don't worry.
Thank you. In Brazil, I, my observation, it's much more common we talk about the female health. We have a lot of programs to
Mm.
incentivize women to
Yes.
make several types of checkups for health,
Yes.
while men, we have, it's not so common. We have, I think, Blue November or
Mm.
something like that, that it's for
Yes.
cancer.
Yes.
But
Prostate cancer.
yes, wouldn't it be also be important to have, I don't know if it would be the proper term, marketing related to male health?
Yes. I think that is not taking account. Well, we came from old world and the new situation, the new world offer an opportunity to change these situations. Men and women are equal at this moment. For example, in infertility, uh, 25% of case correspond to men, 25 to women, another 25% is from both, another 25% we don't know. You see that the between male and female have problems. It's not just for women. This is the reason that uh, it was investigated both. If an unfertile couple go to a clinician, to fertility clinicians, you see that immediately the study goes for women and studies go for men. And in equal condition, begin to study, to analyze some advice from one and for other. That is important. The question is, the people don't lose fertility because it's difficult to go down, to go back. Sorry. Uh, if you lost the fertility, recover the fertility is difficult.
That
Uh,
was a very interesting question. So,
yes.
if you, how can
For
I say?
example, if you go to obesity,
Yes,
if you return from this condition, probably recover, but you are not sure that this happened, yes or yes. For this reason, it's better not enter in this way than going back.
it may have unreversible side effects.
Exactly. It's not so easy. For this reason, it's better healthy life to preserve fertility.
That's very good advice. Dr. Miguel, in the name of our colleagues from the conference, it was a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you, and I hope to have the opportunity to hear from you again in November
Yes.
in
Yes.
live in Mendoza
Mhm.
and with internet transmission from Rio de Janeiro, Vassouras.
Mhm.
It will be a great pleasure to see you again. Thank you very much, Doctor.
The pleasure is for me to make this interview and to collaborate with the Congress. It's an opportunity for all of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day or nice afternoon.
You too, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.